but please can you just, when you're not speaking, please can you use lots of background noise. In some other big news, many of you might already be aware, and you probably come into contact with Bob Williams many times over the last few years. But for those who aren't aware, Bob Williams has decided to take a very well-deserved break from the day-to-day operations of M3. For those who don't know, he's been leading on the development of our diagnostic suite of products. I'm going to be stepping into Bob's very big shoes as the primary contact for aspects of our diagnostic systems, including integration with other products. And John Case, who you will meet a little bit later, who's going to be talking, will be taking over as technical lead. And we have now buffed up our development team and brought in a few more developers to take the product forward. And John Case is going to be talking about that a bit later. We haven't let Bob leave the building entirely yet, so he's still going to remain on hand for some support and some consultation. But he will still be in the background, but he's taken a break from being the front face of the products. Just in terms of how today is going to work, so after this, I'm going to introduce Jonathan Pilkington. He's going to be talking, he's from Riverside, he's going to be talking on how they have integrated M3Central with their CRM system, Salesforce, which fits in quite nicely with today's topic, which is case study on efficient integration. At the end of that, there's going to be an opportunity for you to ask some questions. After that, John Case is going to be talking about the roadmap for our diagnostics suite of products and some of the new features that we've introduced into M3Central. And again, we're going to provide you an opportunity to ask questions at the end of that. And then at 12 o'clock, we're going to break for lunch. At 1 o'clock, we're all coming back for the schedule of rates focus session. If anyone wants to join for that, please do so, because really these two products are intrinsically linked. And while anyone is presenting, if you have any questions, please feel free to add them to the chat, and I'm quite happy to raise them for you with the speakers. Before we get stuck in, I've just got one more thing to mention, which is slightly off topic. So just want to talk briefly about modern methods of construction. So it's a very hot topic at the moment, as you know. So the Affordable Homes Program has set a target of 25% of homes delivered through strategic partnerships to be MMC. And we've partnered with Bromford to create a working party to look at the maintenance profile and possible maintenance issues associated with modern methods of construction, particularly modular homes, which should be theoretically easier to maintain. But if anyone is interested in joining that working party, please drop me a message and let me know. I'll put my email in the chat at the bottom, so just drop me a mail. So yeah, back to our session. As I said, the topic is case study on efficient integration. I'm going to hand over to Jonathan Pilkington from Riverside. Just some background on Jonathan. He's had over 20 years of experience in the IT industry, covering multiple elements, including frontline customer support, internal support, system development, BI reporting, and more recently as a Salesforce developer. And for the past 7 years, he's been at Riverside Housing Association, where he's been integral in setting up the integration with M3Central. So I'm going to stop sharing, and there we go. And Jonathan, if you would like to share your screen and take over.
Hello, can everybody see that? Yep, good.
Yep.
Excellent. Hello, everyone. My name is Jonathan Pilkington, as Craig said. I'm an employee of Riverside. I've actually been there for 6 years, Craig, not 7. Started in 2014. So as Craig said, I've been in IT for over 20 years. I started off as a COBOL programmer doing Y2K conversions, and I've done all sorts of other jobs, BI developer, SQL programmer, multi-value pick-based system developer, and more recently, web development and Salesforce. I've been using M3Central since January 2018, and since that time, I've become quite familiar with it, and we'll go into a bit more detail in that a little later on. As I said, I work for Riverside, so just a little bit about Riverside before we carry on. It's been around for quite some time, nearly 100 years, established in 1928, but recently renamed to Riverside in 1996. We've currently got roughly around 106,000 tenants in 60,000 properties, and they're spread across all over England and Scotland. Not any in Wales or Northern Ireland or anything like that. It's just England and Scotland. And Riverside use quite a few of the products that Craig mentioned earlier. So we do use M3Central, obviously, Locator, Panwin, and RD20, just to name a few. So with that done, on to what I'm here to talk about. So in 2017, our chief exec, Carol Matthews, said that we would provide an online offering to customers to allow them to log repairs by the end of the financial year, which was April 2018. The project was named SSR, which later was rebranded to My Riverside. Now, we signed off on the license for Salesforce at the very end of 2017. So that only gave us a 4-month window to get everything done. And the objectives for this project was to allow a customer to register as themselves on a portal of some kind, provide the ability for that customer to then report a non-emergency repair. So we were only doing this for responsive, small, relatively inexpensive repairs, nothing that would take too much time, nothing that would be expensive. So you couldn't have a customer log that they needed a new roof or a new kitchen or something like that, or you wouldn't want them to log an emergency repair such as, you know, a gas fault, because it might be danger to them, and the response time from logging the repair to actually getting somebody out wouldn't be quick enough in such circumstances. So we really focused the repairs that we wanted to log on just the responsive kind of repairs. And the third element was to allow the customer to choose their own appointment slot for that repair that they logged. And the systems that we needed to integrate was Salesforce, which was our strategic platform going forward for all of our internal systems and customer facing for future releases. Our internal housing management system is Open Housing, which I'm sure some of you may be familiar with. We have the M3Central system for the repair diagnostics, and then for the appointment scheduling side of that, we're using a system called DRS by a company called, well, it was Corona, but I think it's called Advanced now. And as I said, because we only had 4 months to actually put all of this together and deliver for the deadline that Carol Matthews specified, we had no experience with Salesforce. We didn't know how to develop in it, so we had to partner with a third-party consultancy company to deliver that. So we started with that partner very late in December 2017. It was late December, we got together in a room in Liverpool and started to hash out what the primary requirements were and how we were going to do it. For some of you that don't know, I've mentioned Salesforce a few times. Salesforce, according to them, is a customer relationship management solution that brings companies and customers together. It's one integrated CRM platform that gives all your departments, including marketing, sales, commerce, and service, a single shared view of every customer. Now, that really doesn't give you much detail as to what it is. So I would say that Salesforce is the world's #1 CRM system, hosted entirely on the cloud. It's a highly customizable system that can be shaped into any solution to fulfill your needs, providing out-of-the-box standard functionality that can be customized by simple point-and-click customization or for more complex customizations using code. So they have a number of ways to customize Salesforce. They, as I've said, there's some point and click, drag and drop kind of interfaces to change how the tables and the objects in the background look, how the screens look, how workflows work, approval processes, and all that kind of thing. That can all be done by point and click. But if you've got some real niche or specialized changes that you want to make, they have their own language as well and their own framework that you can tap into and make customizations that way. So as I said, it's the #1 CRM in the world. Over 150,000 companies use it, and there's just a few there, including Aston Martin, Virgin Media, and Unilever. So M3Central is what we're using for our report diagnostic tool. Now, M3Central comes in two kind of different flavors. It's the diagnostic mode and the reporting mode. So as we are customer facing for this, we decided to use reporting mode because it was a little simpler. It doesn't have as much information in it. It hides prices and things like that. It's more user friendly, I think, from a customer point of view. We're only doing it to allow reporting repair from the visual element of it. So I know that it provides a drop-down box where you can select the problems from there, and also a text box search, which we're not using. We're using the tenant's responsibility functionality. So there are some repairs in there that will alert the user to the fact that it's a repair that they're actually responsible for. And we're also using the advice page for some extra information that might be relevant to the user, but it's too much to fit on the actual repair diagnostic screen itself. We've made some customizations to M3Central along the way, certainly in the early phases of the project in 2018. Just some of those changes are adjusted menu icons. We've restyled it, so as you can see here on screen with some of those screenshots, it's different colors that you may be used to if you use it yourself. We've reduced the repair list. So as I said a little moment ago, we've removed all of the kind of repairs that would cost too much, would be too time consuming, or act as emergency repairs. We've just kept it on a very simple, basic list. I've added some extra functionality, which I'll go into in a little more detail shortly. And we've turned off some of the existing functionality, which again, I will expand on shortly. So this is just some screenshots of what we've done to the styling. So some of these icons are a little different, kind of try to keep the feel of the standard logos and icons. So the bathroom and plumbing, I think, was a slightly different icon, but I created that one just because it looks a bit more obvious to the user that bathrooms and plumbing is toilets and baths. And we moved some of the other icons around to make them a little more obvious. The styling, again, we've gone with our Riverside teal, which is the company color we use. We've kind of standardized the colors everywhere, the fonts, got our own style guide that we've applied to it. We also had a big exercise of kind of normalizing all of the terms and the labels that you can see. So there was a lot of instances of, for example, up here where you've got your baths and your sinks and your toilets that used to say things like hand wash basin and things like that. So we've kind of made the terms a bit more common, easy to understand, and be more readily obvious as to what they are. And we also went through the SOR codes that hide behind and adjusted some of those, because we didn't want the SOR codes that that were there by default in all instances, because they had implications further down the line for our contractors. So we went through and we changed some of those using the control panel, which is provided if you have M3Central. And the only other thing we've done of major note is removed Dr. Damp. It was kind of a choice we made early on because it was stylistically very different than the rest of the repair diagnostics you can do. And for us at Riverside, and maybe for yourselves as well, if a customer logs a repair and says that they've got damp, it has serious implications elsewhere. So we didn't want the tenants to be able to log damp, and then, you know, if anything were to happen and there was no recourse then to say, well, we said there was damp and you said there wasn't, and you know, things like that. So what we've done is we've removed Dr. Damp and we've added an option elsewhere that says that they can report suspected damp. So it's just a single option that I'll show you a little later. One of the other things that we've done is we've added a new SAR code, custom SAR code for inspections, so that for some of our repairs, we'd like to inspect the property and inspect the potential repair before we actually send the contractor out to do the work. So fences is one example of that. So what we've done is we've added some functionality into there to allow them to select the fence, but then it displays a message, which I will hopefully demo shortly. So we'll talk about the extra functionality that's been added and something that's been removed. So the tenant's responsibility has been enhanced slightly. There is a standard message that is displayed from M3Central, but I've adjusted that. So this is an example you can see in the bottom left of the slide there. The close button that you can see is not the standard default M3 close button. I've hidden that using CSS, and I've replaced it with some JavaScript to create that close button, which when clicked upon performs some extra functionality, which I can demonstrate later. So that links directly into Salesforce and creates a tenant's responsibility case for reporting purposes. We've also got some links there as well that that point to our website to point the users so that they can see the list of all of the items that are the tenant's responsibility, and some self-help guidance if they want to try and fix any of these repairs themselves. Again, on the advice, we've added some links into that as well, which again connect to Salesforce and create cases in that system. We have, as I've said, adjusted some of the SAR codes. So we didn't want all of the standard default SAR codes there, so we've made some changes. And some of the things that we've removed, the functionality, the photo upload, that is an option which you can switch on or off. We've kept it off. It was initially a requirement for the project, but after looking into it, we decided that we weren't keen on how it was storing the photos, so we've switched that off. And then the location drop down, which is on the one of the final screens of the repair selector. It seemed a bit redundant in some cases for us in our use of it, because if you were going to bathroom and toilet and selecting your repair, then when you get to a screen further down the line, you then need to select a location, which kind of seemed redundant because you'd already selected bathroom. But I can understand why it's there, because there are options such as window, which can be in any room. So you would need to select a location for that. But we've gone with the idea of we'll just remove the location, and when the contractor gets to the property to look at the repair, the tenant can show them what the room is. It's not vital information, and it doesn't really degrade the service by not having it there. So some of the other customizations meant that I weeded out some problems and found some issues that have subsequently been fixed. So the work that I've done on M3Central has meant that for all other users of M3Central, there have been bug fixes made, there has been system enhancements, there have been new features, and there have been security enhancements that have all been put into place due to some of the development work that I did integrating M3Central with Salesforce. For a long time, when we were using M3Central to begin with, due to the customizations that I'd done, we had to have a standalone version that wasn't being updated in line with the main release. So we were quite behind on some of those features, but thankfully, I think it was late last year, we managed to align with the latest version now. So we're always kept up to date, which is good because there's been some really nice features that have been released that we've really taken advantage of, and it's made our experience a lot better, and we hope the customers can see that too. One of those is the quick send flag, which allows you to skip the final shopping basket screen, I think we refer to it as, which I can all demonstrate that shortly. So the security enhancements is probably the biggest enhancement that's been done to M3Central based off of the work that I did. So to put that into a bit more context and detail, the way that I've embedded some of the JavaScript into M3Central is by using the control panel editor and entering JavaScript into there, which is like it was termed as a JavaScript injection. And I think some IT security people may have had issue with that. So luckily, after I'd done that and we discussed it with M3 themselves, they'd put some fixes in place to prevent that from happening from the editor itself. So there's no longer that security hole in place. We still use our custom JavaScript, but we work around the back end by actually editing the source files directly, and we work very closely with M3. So they provide us with the file that I need to edit, I edit it, and then send it back, and they publish it. So it's a very close collaboration we've got with M3 when working on our customizations. Just to keep you up to date with the project, the release 1 went live in May 2018. It should have been April as for the deadline, but Easter got in the way. So our go live was pushed to the first day of May after the Easter holiday. That was including a private beta audience of about 3,500 tenants. So what we did is we looked at all of the tenants that we have that showed an interest in online offerings. We went to a user group and we just selected those 3,500 that we thought were most likely to want to use the service and register. So at the release 1, we had all integrations with our systems. So Salesforce was integrated with M3Central, Open Housing, and DRS. We had the full registration process working. The user was able to log in and diagnose a repair and then appoint that repair. That was all working perfectly fine. We went straight into a second release after that, which expanded the beta audience again to 10,000 tenants, and we added some extra functionality. So release 1 was always the bare minimum product. It was an MVP, a minimum viable product. So release 2 was really fleshing that out a bit more. So we added the ability for the user to cancel or rearrange an appointment, which basically was very similar to the booking. It showed a calendar view and allowed them to rearrange it. We added rent statements to the portal, which allowed them to view their rent statements over the last 12 months and gave them an option to pay their rent online as well. And we also went through a visual redesign. It looks a lot nicer now than it did on release 1. But as we said, release 1 was really just get it online and get customers using. As I mentioned, when we started the project in late 2017, early 2018, we were working with a third-party consultancy. But on January 2019, Riverside became fully self-sufficient in updating and maintaining My Riverside. We've had a national rollout now, which means that we've expanded the audience that we want to use My Riverside to all of our tenants, and a marketing campaign happened in July 2020. And just to update you with the latest figures, we've now got more than 14,500 registered users. We get approximately 700 users a month. 47% of registered users view their rent statements online each month. We've got about 2,400 online repairs per month being raised. So it's really going well. The tenants seem to be enjoying it, using it, and more register month by month, which is good. So hopefully now I can demonstrate what we've done, and hopefully you'll be able to see how we've used M3Central. If you can just log in. So this is Salesforce briefly, and this is our implementation of how we've used it. I can go into a bit more detail shortly. I just want to get to our My Riverside portal. And of course, it's going very slow. So this is what My Riverside looks like after the user has logged in. I won't go through the whole login and registration process because we're here really to talk about M3Central. So to log a repair, to report a repair, you can click on the big button here. We have a message that we've included for COVID. So COVID has really provided a challenge for, I guess, all repair contractors over the last year. So when we went to lockdown in March, initially we had to turn off all repairs. We had a completely different message, but as lockdown had restrictions had eased, we've changed the message just to warn the users that repairs may take a little longer. So just to talk a bit about Salesforce, we're using what's called the Community Cloud, which is the externally facing portion of Salesforce, and within this community we've embedded M3Central, as you can see. So some of you may recognize this. So we've just embedded that within a secure portion of a Salesforce community cloud page. So if I just go through and show you some of the functionality that I mentioned earlier. So we've got some of these logos have changed, some of the styling here. I will show you the tenant's responsibility first. So what we've got here in the bath panels is a tenant's responsibility repair. So just gives you a little bit more information. Clicking on this link opens a new tab, which takes you to our website that shows you the list of repairs that are responsible from the tenant. Nothing too fancy, just a simple opening of a link, which is taking a long time. There we go. The close button, as I mentioned earlier, is a custom button which replaces the existing close button that's by default on M3Central. It's still there, it's just hidden. So by clicking on that, what we're effectively doing is communicating with Salesforce to create a new case. So that has now worked. If I just quickly go back to Salesforce and show you this user and the cases that's been raised, you can see the, hopefully be able to see the tenant's responsibility repair case, which is just for internal reporting purposes. So for the user, they don't get anything, they don't see anything else after that. They've been told they need to fix their own repair, but we wanted to keep a track of all of those so we could report on them to see how many people were trying to log repairs that they should have fixed themselves. So if I look at the repairs that have been logged, you can see this one here, tenant's responsibility. So we can see exactly that Salesforce is connected correctly with M3Central. Again, we've got the same kind of thing with the advice page with self-help. So we've got some information here. For any self-help guidance, please click here. That again will log another case within Salesforce and also open up a page to our website again where they can find self-help information on how to fix very simple repairs, change a light bulb, unblock a toilet, that kind of thing. Something that is not going to be too onerous on the user. And again, if I just refresh this list, you can see the self-help case has been created in Salesforce. I will show you the pre-inspections, which I mentioned earlier. So this is going to use our pre-inspection route. So what we've done here in Salesforce is, rather than log an actual repair, it will create a case in Salesforce, but it will send an email to our customer service center for them to investigate first before either logging a repair genuinely or contacting the customer and arranging some other information. So that will allow us to capture this online as well. This is the screen where we've removed the location drop down. As I said, it didn't seem particularly necessary. And then that should now go to Salesforce and tell the user that we've got all their information, and an email will be sent to our customer service center. Our test system is a little slow, so it's not quite this slow for our production users. Okay, I just love it when real-time demos stop working. Let's just check if it's created the case. No. Yeah. It's created a repair there. I should go back to the beginning. And I will try and demonstrate logging a real repair. So we'll use a trusty leaking tap, which is always a favorite repair of ours to try with. So hopefully this now correctly logs a case with Salesforce. And again, our test system does not seem to be working, which is, I think it was refreshed this morning, so there may be some config that hasn't been set properly. So there was the pre-inspection repair. It's changed to a referral, but this one is not working. Let me see if I can show you what would have happened. So this is their list of repairs that have previously been logged in the past. So we've seen the fence and fence posts, which created a referral, which is just the term that we use for any repairs that are logged where an email is sent to the customer service center directly. Their advice is the case that was created when they clicked on the self-help link, and the tenant's responsibility is the case that we got from the bath panel. If they were to click on a regular repair, they would see it in the list here, which gives them the option to book their appointment, which is done just by clicking on the case, and it automatically launches the book appointment process if they haven't already booked it. If they have booked the appointment previously, it will give them the option to cancel or rearrange. And things seem to be going very slowly today. Just while we're waiting for that, I just thought I would mention some of the changes that have, some of the bug fixes and changes from M3Central that have come about from our integration work. Character limits on the comments box, I think, was introduced from something we requested. The JavaScript injection in the editor has been fixed. We mentioned that earlier. We came across some bugs in the repair editor as well, where we couldn't add SOR codes to certain problems because it was inconfigured correctly. So I think that was fixed. We've asked for us to only allow our customers to select a single repair. So it wasn't like a shopping basket where you could select a leaky tap, a broken window, a broken kitchen tile. We specifically limited it to a single repair. And upon doing that, we found a bug that allowed the user to add multiple if they just refreshed the screen, so it wasn't clearing that cache out properly. But that's been fixed. Because we only have a single repair, I think the quick send functionality, which skips the shopping basket screen, it was probably generated because of that. We also noticed that there were some invalid SOR codes that were in the editor by default. So I think when SOR version 5 moved to 6, all the SOR codes should have been refreshed, but we found a couple that were still the old SOR codes, which were corrected. And then we also found a bug that prevented us from turning Dr. Damp off, which we wanted to do. So that was fixed. So they are all different fixes and enhancements that you would have all have received due to the work that we did. And the most important fix of all time is the return of the little animal messages that you may have seen in Locator Plus. That is now in M3Central because I requested it personally. So it looks like our repair has now been correctly logged. We can see that this is the initial appointment that's provided for us. But if we wanted to choose a different appointment, we can click, and we have now got a calendar view, which shows the appointments that they can have because we're in their area, or just any other available appointment. Any appointments that are not available, such as this Friday here, will not be shown to be selectable. So I can just select a repair and confirm, and that will now book that repair on Wednesday, the 23rd of December. And I think, okay, it's been taken. I think that's it for the demo. So let me bring this back up. So I guess if you've had any questions, I'll pass back over to Craig. My email address is there, and so is my LinkedIn profile. If you have any questions that you want to ask directly, please feel free. So I think now Craig, do I pass back to you?
Yep, that's fine. Thank you very much for that, Jonathan. That was brilliant. And especially in the early days of M3Central, you're right. A lot of the improvements and bug fixes that were introduced were due to the hard work that you did at Riverside. So thank you very much for that. Maybe I'll just kick off the questions quickly. So you've mentioned that the take-up of the My Riverside portal has been extremely good. What proportion of your repairs are coming through M3Central at the moment from tenants? Do you know what's the take-up been by tenants?
I think it's been quite good. I think we're on something like a 60-40 split, so maybe 60% online now. I think just from those. I mean, we're only talking about the responsive small-term repairs. We still get all of our emergency repairs and bigger repairs through the phone because they're not available online. But yeah, so it's about a 60-40 split, I think.
Fantastic. And maybe just one more before I pass over to everyone else. So what do you know what made you choose M3Central to begin with at the start?
I think it was because we use Locator Plus internally. So when a customer rings our customer service center to log a repair, the advisor on the phone is actually using Locator themselves to find and diagnose that repair. And I think we learned that you had a web version of Locator called M3Central. And as we were going to be using Salesforce, and that was all cloud hosted, I think it just made sense that we were already familiar with Locator. And if M3Central was going to provide that same functionality but online, we may as well use it. And I think that was the decision. I think it was a bit before my joining of the project, but I think it was probably related to that.
Fantastic. I'm going to open it up to everyone else. Does anyone have any questions for Jonathan? Any points or comments they'd like to raise? You can just unmute yourself and speak up. Or you can add it to the chat, and I'm happy to raise it to Jonathan on your behalf.
Hi. Hello,
Hi.
I'm Jackie Bernard from
Hi,
St
Jackie.
Mungo's. I just wanted to ask just a couple of quick questions. If a customer wanted to raise a repair and they might have put the wrong diagnostic in the actual repair and they realize afterwards, are they able to change it? That's one question.
No, they can't change the existing repair. They would have to cancel their initial repair and log a new one.
Okay, so are they able to cancel it themselves, or would that need to have an administrator or someone to cancel that for them?
They can cancel it themselves.
They can cancel it themselves. And the second question is, if, for example, they arrange an appointment with one of the contractors, and lastminute.com, like an hour before, they decided, oh, I'm not going to go there. I can't be there anymore because I've got to pop out to the shops. What happens then? Are they able to cancel the appointment?
No.
Or would this be deemed as an abortive call out?
It would be. So we've got some rules in place that say if your appointment is tomorrow, for example, you cannot change or cancel your appointment after 5 p.m. So 5 p.m. On the previous day of your scheduled repair is the cutoff for rearrangement. If you desperately needed to rearrange after that time, you would have to phone in. You'd have to phone to get that changed.
Sorry, because I'd missed about half an hour or so or more of your demonstration. I do apologise.
Okay.
I got engrossed with what I was doing at work and thought, oh, let me log on. So this particular package is obviously for tenants. It's like a tenant portal,
yes,
isn't it? Basically,
yes, it is. Exactly.
For them to get into and to raise the repairs, and basically we would then pick it up by viewing it and making sure that everything was in order as the other side of the business. Yes.
Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you. That's all I need to ask. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Jackie. Anyone else have any questions for Jonathan?
Yes, sorry. Just a quick one. Just for my understanding, I'm Graham from Leeds Federated Housing. So there is a gatekeeping process. There isn't the self-diagnostic doesn't result in an order being issued as such directly.
It kind of does. So the process flow would be the tenant diagnoses the repair, and if it's a proper repair, it will automatically raise that job in our open housing management system. It would also create the repair in our appointment scheduling tool, so that when the user then selects their appointment, it automatically schedules the repair for them. So the whole process is automated. There's no middleman
Okay.
that approves it.
Okay. And did you find any difficulty in, I know you've limited it down, but have you found any difficulty in aligning SORs to the type of repairs that you're getting through?
There has been some challenges, yeah, but I think that's only a handful that don't quite line up perfectly to what we want. So we've had to compromise slightly, but it's not been a major problem now.
Right, only because over the course of the schedule of rates evolving, some of those more generic ones have disappeared over time. You know, attend, locate, fault style. They seem to be a little bit more specific, and I'm just wondering, a lot of tenants are obviously more than capable in specifying exactly what it is that's wrong, but we found quite a lot of instances where it can be quite vague, and so aligning something that's specific that's going to enable the engineer to pick that up, especially things that need, I mean, obviously the carrying van stock, but especially if it potentially relates to a replacement part.
Yeah, so we do routinely go through the SOR list and update them within M3Central to try and keep them as relevant as possible. There are instances where, as you say, they don't align perfectly, so we've kind of chosen a code that is relatable but maybe not exact, and then it would be up to the tenant to show the contractor exactly what the repair is, and if that does mean that there's a part required or they need a repeat visit, then a follow-on appointment would be made.
Fine. And you haven't ended up having to create a shed load of bespoke repair descriptions to enable that to happen?
No.
Good. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Graham.
Hi. Yeah, hi. It's Sally here from Newark and Sherwood District Council.
Hi, Sally.
Hi, just one quick query. As the responsive repairs manager, one of the things that we find the most difficult is scheduling repairs. We use DRS2, and we're trying to move the workforce onto one job at a time so that we can let DRS schedule itself, be the most effective it can be. How does that line up if a tenant's gone on, booked a repair, they've been given a date, a time and a slot, and then the DRS decides to move it to make it more efficient? I'm just wondering how that works. My concern, everything else is brilliant until we got to that step where we're letting a customer book their own appointment, and then I got a little bit nervous.
Right. Well, I'm not familiar entirely with the specifics of DRS itself, but I don't believe that we've got ours set up to do that.
Okay.
So once you've booked an appointment, that's your slot, and that will stay that unless it's changed via the customer, or this customer service center would phone the customer and say, you know, if there was an illness or something, it would be a specific conversation to change it. DRS would not swap that around automatically.
Okay, so it's locking then. It's locking the job.
It is, yeah. But something we have started to use elsewhere, because we're now using Salesforce internally for our customer service center, and we've used DRS in that again for scheduling the appointments, but we've used DRS's push notifications. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yeah.
So that would potentially solve that issue, because as soon as the appointment is planned in DRS, that sends a push notification to a web service endpoint, which in our case is Salesforce, and it updates our cases directly. from that push notification. So you might want to speak to them about push notifications, and that could solve your problem.
Perfect. Thank you ever so much.
Can I just jump in there, Sally, because I've used DRS in the past and I know exactly where you're coming from with that question. And I think it depends. There's a couple of ways of turning on the dynamic scheduling element in it.
Yeah.
If you put a floating job in, then it can move it to a completely different day. So, for example, external works where the resident doesn't necessarily have to be aware of the appointment. But certainly my understanding, as long as you don't force any jobs in, that's what tends to break DRS. It will only move it within the parameters of that appointment. So if you say you're going Friday morning, it can move it within Friday morning, but instead of being 8 o'clock, it might move it to 11 o'clock. But as long as you've let the resident know it's a morning appointment, it will just move it within them parameters.
Perfect. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks for that.
I've got a quick follow-on question. Have you done any analysis? It's Graham again from Leeds Fed. Have you done any analysis of the first time fix rate success from raising it through the portal as compared to call taking? And is it substantially different?
I'm afraid that's information I don't have, to be honest. That would be more of our BI team or internal repairs team, I'm afraid. Sorry, I can't answer that one.
Good question, though.
Hi, Matt Score from NCHA. The only kind of issue I see is an increased cost by only raising a single job, and an inconvenience really for the resident, because if I'm a resident and I've got several repairs, I want one guy to come and try and do as many as he can. Obviously that's restricted obviously by trade for electricians and things like that may be specialists, but for me we should be trying to push multi-trade operatives to once up the garden path, get the job done and cause less inconvenience. So that's kind of an issue I see with it. And then the other thing is obviously less efficiency as well for the contractor. If we're raising several smaller jobs, then the contractor is going to be less efficient because he might be going back 2 or 3 times. And there's the minimum order value that you would obviously see push up your costs. Has there been any kind of look at that, Jonathan?
Yeah, we did initially look at offering the multi-job functionality. I think time was a factor, certainly in our initial release, that we came across problems that we couldn't quite solve initially due to the fact that if you logged a different trade, for example, so if you had a plumber and an electrician or a plasterer or a joiner, and then all those had different SMVs, your standard minute values, it was starting to get complicated with appointments then, because it might mean that, well, you've booked 2 jobs, but the plumber can come today, can come tomorrow, but the electrician can't come till Thursday next week or something. So then you're having to create multiple appointments anyway. So it is something we've looked at, and I think it's still on the cards for revisiting again at some point in the future. But I think we kind of realized that single repairs are the way to go. We've also limited the number of repairs that a tenant can log at a time anyway. So we've got limits in place for, I think it's 10 or 12 repairs within a month and up to 30 in a year. So really, if somebody was wanting to log multiple appointments at a time, then there's some overriding issue with, potentially some overriding issue with the property, and it would need a full inspection. So I think at the time, when we first went live, we were doing something called property MOTs, which was every time that the property was let, or just before it was let, while it was void, we would go in to that property, do a full top to bottom inspection and fix all issues, so that we knew that when a tenant went in, everything was perfect. So if they were starting to log multiple repairs and a property had an MOT, then we knew that it was either them that was breaking it or there was something else wrong. So it was just, I think it was multiple reasons that made us restrict to a single repair.
Excellent. Thank you, Jonathan. I'm going to stop the questions there.
Sorry, Craig, can I just jump in really quickly in response to Graham at Leeds Federated? My name's Lindsay Parker. I work at Riverside in the asset management team. Hi, Graham. If I put I'm the standards manager in asset management, but I do work alongside the performance team. If I drop my email in the chat, I'd be happy to try and find out the answer.
Smashing.
Follow-on works and fix sort of performance data.
Yes, that would be really helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Yes. No problem.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm going to hand over now to John Case, who is going to talk about the roadmap for M3Central and some of the new features that have been introduced. John, do you want to share your presentation?
Yeah, thanks, Craig. Hi, everyone. So I'm John Case. I'm a director of M3, and I'm now managing the development team working on M3Central and associated products. So thanks to Jonathan for his presentation. It's always good to see some interesting implementations of the software. And as Craig mentioned earlier, we've had a bit of a transitional period as Bob's taken more of a backseat after being the primary developer of the products for so many years. So we've added to the development team, and the new guys have been getting to grips with the code and now starting to add their own features and updates. So I'm going to run through some of the key activities we've been working on for the past few months, and feel free to add any questions, suggestions, etc. in the chat as we go through. So first one relates to M3Central Diagnostics. In the scheduler, the shopping basket that Jonathan was referring to, you can now export that to Excel. So this is a feature that previously existed in Locator Plus, but you get the data from the scheduler in an Excel file that you could then use with another system or for another purpose. And we've also moved the send button over to the right, away from the middle of the buttons, just a minor tweak, just to hopefully make it more user-friendly and intuitive. In M3Central Diagnostics as well, we've added the a flag for right to repair items. So any items defined as right to repair in the schedule of rates has a banner appearing on the bottom of the item in diagnostics to inform the user that this repair is potentially subject to right to repair legislation. Now, the text that appears can be edited in the settings, as can the schedule of rates items themselves that have the message. And if you're using the NHF schedule, as most people will be, they come with default values. So although this is designed for right to repair, it could be used for any purpose, really, any purpose you want to highlight particular schedule of rates with a common message or warning. So if anyone's interested in that, do give us a shout. Another change we've made, this one affects both diagnostics and reporting. This was from a user request, was to be able to automatically show the advice form. And we've done this using a parameter which goes into the URL. So the parameter is ampersand show advice equals 1. And that means that when you go to a repair area, the advice screen automatically pops up. So you can choose to activate this as part of your integration of either diagnostics or reporting. So call takers or tenants have the advice readily available. or because it's done as a parameter, you could use it for different areas of the business, have it on and other areas not on. And again, it stems from functionality that exists in Locator Plus. So we brought it forward to M3Central. So we saw from Jonathan Riverside how M3Central is highly customizable for implementing in your own systems and in your own brands and styles, and all the changes you can make either through the control panel or with support from ourselves. And so it's just a reminder really that we can customize the look and feel of M3Central to suit your organization, style, branding, website, etc. So everything looks and feels consistent within the application or website that M3Central is embedded. So I've just got a couple of examples here of ones we've done recently at Golden Lane and Link Cymru, just to ensure that M3Central reporting is consistent within the website that it sits in. Now we've also worked quite closely with Impact Housing, who are actually part of the Riverside group, but they have their own customer app for accessing their account, and they can pay their bills, etc. And within the app, they can report repairs, and this is done using M3Central integrated in it. And so again, we've helped with various CSS and layout changes to make it a seamless experience as possible, and to ensure that M3Central looks part of that application. So the mainly minor user interface and layout tweaks, but some other coding to make it work in this instance. Yeah, so different users do implement M3Central in different ways, and we have close relationships with various housing management suppliers for implementing with their systems. But if anyone wants to talk to us about any of these ideas, any ideas you have yourself, then please get in touch. Now, one of the headaches for our developers recently is a sort of legacy technology issue that we picked up. So unfortunately, it's not very exciting for the end user, but it's been a big headache for the developers. So we've got M3 Surveyor and M3Central Reporting, which are essentially offline versions of the products, and they allow for storing data locally, and that data can then be used when a connection is available again. So previously these were implemented with application cache, it's called, to store this content offline, but this is soon to be deprecated by the World Wide Web Consortium and will be replaced with service workers. So our guys have been looking at changing the code to make sure it's going to work with a seamless integration before this deprecation occurs. Another user request we had, which we're working on right now, is the ability to upload video files. So as well as uploading photos, a resident could upload a video recorded on their phone or tablet when submitting a repair request, to provide the operatives with as much detail as possible. And it's done in the same way you would normally upload a video. So instead of picking a photo, you pick a video, and the user sees a preview of the video within M3Central reporting. And there'll be checks to ensure that it is actually a video file being uploaded and it's of a reasonable size. You don't want to end up watching Lord of the Rings or something when it's a repair to attack. Another thing we're working on right now is accessibility. We have run our sites through an automated accessibility software that checks whether we're compliant with certain web accessibility legislation. And our results were semi-compliant, so we know there's a few things we need to improve upon. And the software tells us which bits. And so yeah, we've got some minor tweaks that we're working on right now to get through that. So in terms of what's next, in the immediate term, these tweaks, these latest changes that we've added will be on our new beta site, and various people have signed up to access that, and anyone can get in touch with Craig if they would like to be added to it. So we have some new volunteers already. What we'll do is we'll allow about a month for feedback and tweaks for the new developments, and then aim to go live in January. The idea is we've got lots of different implementations in place, so we want to make sure that people who've got use M3Central in different ways can make sure it's not going to upset their installation. And then hopefully we'll continue in that vein, maybe on a twice a year basis. Obviously bug fixes and individual client changes will be made ad hoc, but I'm talking about big key features and functionality to ensure they're fully tested. We also have version 7.2 of the M3 NHF schedule of rates coming out, which you'll hear about in the next session. So we've got work to add these schedules to Locator Plus and M3Central, see if there's any new schedule of rates items that we need to map, and Graham's point about schedule of rates changing and whether different items could be used. You know, part of that there'll be a review of that sort of thing. There might be that there's newer items that are more suitable now for certain repairs. In terms of the new development, we've got our own ideas of what we want to work on next, or what we think should be worked on next. But really we do want to be led by users. Some of the things we're going to look at are the support area. So that's through the M3 website, but also the control panel, the M3Central control panel. We want to try and make it all a seamless experience and easier access to latest documentation and things like that. The locations drop-down box, actually, which has come up a couple of times today, and Jonathan mentioned about Riverside not implementing that. There have been requests to make that context sensitive, and that's something we want to look at. So for example, if you're reporting a loose kitchen unit, you can't then say that it's in the bathroom. So some sort of mapping between repair items and locations, and in some cases that would mean you get a default location that you can't, that the resident can't actually change. We want to improve the photo upload process. I mentioned about videos before, but some of the discussions previously with Riverside and with Impact has given us some thought on how that process could be streamlined and reduce the sort of number of clicks required. and maybe make the ability to add captions as optional, because if you're not using that information, there's no point collecting it. And then the overall look of the images is something quite a few people ask us, whether they can use their own images. And so a review of those is something we're certainly looking at, and possibly creating a new set that you can then switch between, depending on which view you like best. And another request that's for functionality that exists in Locator Plus is a text view in M3Central Diagnostics. So once you've been through the repair group and category, rather than seeing the graphical scene for that category, the repair problems are viewed in a text-based table, which some call takers prefer. Yeah, so that's a summary of what we're planning for the next few months, but really we are led by requests from our users and the client base. So most of those have come from discussions with our clients and new clients. Okay, so that gives you an idea, but if anyone's got any questions or suggestions, we would like to hear them.
John, we've got one from the chat, one from Holly. She says, relating to the advice box, can this appear as a message prompt when certain SOR items are selected? For instance, an issue with electric shower, we need to prompt our customer service to ask further questions for make or model, or for this to be entered by the tenant.
Yes, yeah, that sounds possible, because we can edit the advice content, can't we? So yes, I think so. That's something we definitely can look at. And
also to add to that, just on the reporting side for tenants, you have the option to add further questions where you could ask that kind of information too. So we've added that functionality.